Hello everyone, I am Super Sage 7 and this is a list I made of 5 reasons why the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE was awesome. Now you look at WWE today, the PG era stuff, mostly disappointing, mostly. And long-time wrestling fans like myself look back at what wrestling used to be and we say, what happened? A lot of people look back at the Attitude Era. It was such a great era. A lot of good things happened during that time period, and it was a pretty popular time in wrestling. Excuse me, but what some people don't realize is the era that came after that, the Ruthless Aggression era, was just as good, if not better. I grew up on the Ruthless Aggression era, so I came up with these reasons as to why I believe that era in particular was awesome. So here we go. 5 reasons why the Ruthless Aggression era was awesome. Number 1, the brand extension. At the time, I didn't think it was such a good idea. Why would you cut half your roster, have one half compete on one show, and the other half wrestle on another? It just didn't. At the time, it didn't seem right to me, but now that I look back on it, it was an ingenious concept. You look at WWE back then, they had no real competition outside of, their company. WCW went out of business, ECW went out of business, TNA and ROH didn't exist at that point, so, it was kind of hard to, stay competitive and stay fresh with no real competition from the outside. So this was WWE's way of staying competitive by having more or less a competition within themselves. They asked their fans to choose which show they liked more. Did they like Raw or did they like SmackDown? And that was an ingenious concept, like I said. It gave each show their own brand. Each show had their own fan base, and they kind of pit the shows against each other eventually. And every now and then they had a draft, a WWE draft, where some superstars would get drafted to Raw from SmackDown or vice versa. And it was just a good concept all the way around. I mean, now that I look back on it, it lasted for a good 7-8 years. And it was a good concept while it lasted. So that's one reason. Number 2, talent development. Back in the day, WWE's developmental program, I believe, was OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. And back then, WWE developed their young guys the right way. Now, you had several prominent figures, several of the most well-known superstars in WWE today got their start in the Ruthless Aggression era. John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Batista, a couple other guys I can name. And they raised their talent the right way. They had talent build up slowly, and then when they got to the right point, they had them, they lifted them up to, the main event status. They did it the right way. Unlike today, I believe today they try to raise their talent up way too fast. It seems rushed. A lot of guys don't seem ready, and they end up getting ruined as a result. And back in the day, back in this Ruthless Aggression era, I think they raised talent the right way. And, that's just my opinion on that. So that's one thing that I liked, the talent development. And like I said, a lot of great superstars got their start in the Ruthless Aggression era. So that's one thing. Number 3, the title pictures. Now, the championships back then had value. They had prestige. You look at WWE today, that is not the case. Back then, like I said, there was a brand extension. Each brand had their own championships. Raw had the World Heavyweight Championship. SmackDown had the WWE Championship. And obviously those championships were prestigious in their own right for each show. But they also had the mid-card titles, tag team division, and whatnot. And those titles were sought after and prestigious as well. Monday Night Raw had the Intercontinental title, which they brought back at Judgment Day 2003. It has been a prestigious title for a long time in WWE, ever since the late 70s, early 80s. It has been a prestigious title for a long time, and it remained a prestigious title on Raw, whereas on SmackDown, they brought the United States title, which was originally in WCW, but they brought it to SmackDown, and in my opinion, they made that title prestigious on that show as well. They made it just as prestigious as Intercontinental title on Raw. So those mid-card titles were huge because obviously if any wrestling fan will tell you that mid-card titles like the IC title or the US title are stepping stones for a wrestler to get to that next step, to be in was that next step for a wrestler to get to that main event spot to compete for that World Heavyweight title. And not to mention, and of course, you had the women's title, the women's division, which was stacked. It was stacked back then. The women's title was on Raw. They had the Cruiserweight title division. Cruiserweight division was great back then. I had so many great Cruiserweight title matches that I could list, so many. And the Cruiserweight division was on SmackDown. And, of course, both brands had tag team divisions. The tag team divisions were great back then. They had new, fresh tag teams coming in seemingly almost every year. And, like I said, it was great. And you just don't see that now. The titles don't have any real value. The tag team division is depleted, highly depleted. The U.S. title and the Intercontinental title have no value whatsoever. This new Divas Championship is worthless. And the WWE Championship is diminished because they'll give virtually anybody a title shot now. So that's another thing I liked that the Ruthless Aggression Era did. They gave their championships prestige and they were coveted. And that's one thing I liked. Number 4, clear distinction of a wrestler's place on the card. Back then, there was a clear distinction of whether a guy was a main eventer, or a mid-carder, or an opening carder, or a jobber, or a developmental guy. You don't see that today. Today, I look at the roster, who's a main eventer? Seriously, I can name 2, maybe 3 main eventers on the current roster. Everybody else, to me, is a mid-carder. Back then, you had a clear distinction of who was in the main event, who was a mid-card, and who was an opening card. Back then, you had Raw guys. You had about 3 or 4 main event guys on Raw, 3 or 4 main event guys on SmackDown. You had your mid-card, you had your Cruiserweight division, you had your Intercontinental title picture, U.S. title picture, and whatnot. And that's another thing that was so great about the Ruthless Aggression Era. They had clear distinction of where a wrestler's place was on the card. And some of these mid-card guys who were contending for the United States title or Intercontinental title, they pushed them in just a certain way that when they got ready, they would be lifted up to that next step and compete for the world title or WWE title. And that's one thing I liked. And number 5, and finally, theme songs. The Ruthless Aggression Era had some of the best damn theme songs in WWE. Everybody remembers the old Monday Night Raw theme. I think it was called Across the Nation. That was a badass theme. You look at SmackDown, some of the themes they had, there were some badass themes. One of them, I think, was called Beautiful People. And then the one in 04, 05, I think it was called Rise Up. Like I said, these are some badass themes. And some of these wrestlers had some badass themes. You look at Edge, you look at Randy Orton, you look at Triple H, just a whole lot of guys. Even guys who weren't, big-time superstars, even guys who were coming up had some badass themes. You look at WWE today, you have a bunch of bland, boring, generic themes that nobody really cares about. Back in the day when I watched Raw or SmackDown, when I saw that theme song, that got me excited. That got me pumped up for the show. You don't get that now. And that's one thing I liked about the Ruthless Aggression Era. Their theme songs were kick-ass. So that was my list. I think there are some more things that I could list, but I just decided to make this list of 5. If anybody out there has any more reasons, any reasons you like to list, just list them in the comment section here. If you like the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm doing lots of different things, wrestling videos. Later I'm doing videos on anime and such. I'll be doing lots of stuff on this channel. I've posted a lot of videos recently. I'm trying to get this channel growing, so any support I can get will be appreciated. And I believe that's it. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. See you later.